Okay, Jackie.
Welcome to this edition of ARP Massachusetts Fraud Talk Tuesdays. We're here the second Tuesday of each month from 12 to 12:30 when we discuss a different scam and how you can protect yourself and your family from becoming victimized by fraud and scams. Today's topic is job search and job posting scams. My name is Jackie Cairo Williams. I'm a volunteer with the ARP Massachusetts, and our presenter today is Alice Diamond, a volunteer with Mass ARP and the Fraud Watch Network Helpline. Alice has worked with job seekers and has seen firsthand the types of scams being perpetrated on job seekers. You may have joined us today with questions already in mind. If you have, please put them into the Q&A at the bottom of the screen. Or if you have questions come up during the presentation, put them into the Q&A. This session is being recorded and you will receive a copy of this recording and several PowerPoint slides that we will share at the end of the presentation. Please share them with family and friends. At the end of the presentation, we will share a page with links to a number of resources. So let's get started. So Alice, good morning. Afternoon.
Morning.
You have a unique perspective when it comes to job search scams in your career. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, I retired recently from my position as Associate Dean for Career Services at a university. And the tremendous proliferation of fraudulent job postings that we received in our office was just, in the beginning, it was a surprise, and then it pretty much became a weekly occurrence.
Why would scammers post fake job postings, job openings?
I know that is a really good question. Basically, two reasons. Number one, scammers want to get your money. And number two, they want to steal your identity so that they can then get your money.
Of course. What are some of the red flags that job seekers should be looking for to spot potential scams?
So I'm going to give in this afternoon a lot of examples. I'm certainly not going to hit every example. And one of the goals that I have is that as job seekers, you'll be thinking about the possibility of scams and not just limit yourself to the examples that I've given. There are some job titles that are more likely to be scams. One is mystery shopper. This is a job where you're paid to purchase items at a retail store and write a report about customer service. Now, for any of us who like to shop, and I put myself in that category, it seems like a great job. Get paid to shop, right?
Yes.
But many of these postings are fraudulent, especially because they can involve sending money and potentially sending money back. Others that are frequently used by scammers are personal assistant. Another one is virtual remote assistant. But I have to say that almost any job title can potentially be a scam posting. I've seen them for graphic designer, program coordinator, manager, and more.
Wow.
You also want to really pay attention to some of the following phrases. Work from home and earn a six-figure salary. That seems like a great idea, especially on a day like today, where in many parts of the state, it's pretty snowy, but it's not really very likely to be what it says it is. Another phrase you want to watch out for are things like guaranteed job placement, asking for payment for access to government jobs. You should not pay for access to any job listings, including post office jobs. And basically, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
That makes sense, especially the 6 figures working from home. That's a red flag. So where are the scam job openings posted?
Well, unfortunately, everywhere that legitimate postings are in existence. So you can see them on LinkedIn, Indeed, Google Ads, Facebook. Even an email forwarded to you by a trusted friend could contain a scam postings. And let me just say something about how that could happen. First of all, that message that you got on Facebook Messenger that appears to be from your cousin might not actually be from your cousin. And the other thing is that the email is forwarded to by your friend because they know you're looking for the particular job. They may not have clicked into the posting and investigated it. So just be cautious.
Good advice. Good advice. So how can you figure out whether or not a job posting is really a scam?
Okay.
You gave some examples.
So one of the things is one of my volunteer responsibility is that I'm a helpline caller for the Fraud Watch Network helpline. And so I call people who have been victimized by scammers. And one of the things that people say is it never occurred to me that it could be a scam. So the first thing is to be just as you're job searching, again, remember that there's a lot of postings out there that are fraudulent. So here's a couple tips of things to look for. Okay. Be cautious if there's a personal email address associated with the posting. So the convention with email suffixes is that it would have a .com suffix for a business, a .org suffix for nonprofit, .edu for educational organization. So if it's a Gmail account or an AOL account, just raise the question, why is this coming from a personal email? Now, it doesn't mean every Gmail that you get is about a job is fraudulent, but just raise the question. Number two, if you get this, you will be able to spot numbers of scams. Look at the email address really carefully. If the email is supposed to be from Smith and Jones, and I just made that up, is it spelled Smith A-N Jones? D is missing. So just start looking carefully at the actual email address. If I had done that early on in the scam postings, I would have spotted some that I missed. Another thing you can do is this is not rocket science, by the way. If there's a street address for the organization, look it up on Google Maps. And it might seem really simple, but I found a number of scam postings by doing this. I see an empty lot where a business is supposed to be, or a personal residence where a corporation is supposed to be. So
that's good advice. That's good advice. But I think one of the key things too that you just said was about the spelling.
Yes, spelling, very important. Another thing I want you to be really cautious of, if someone claims to be a recruiter from an agency or from some third party. Now, there are many legitimate recruiters, but be aware that many scammers pose as recruiters. And so if you are wondering why it's a Gmail, they'll say, well, I'm an outside recruiter. So again, I just want you to be cautious. If you get, a good thing to do is do a search of the company website, look the person up who contacted you on LinkedIn. And while you're doing that, you're also going to be aware that there are fraudulent websites that aren't for the real company. A good tip is to mouse over the web address and look at the address of the site you're looking at, because sometimes even if the site looks legit, when you look at the actual web address, you can see that even a letter or two is missing. And then also be aware that scammers do impersonate real people who are on LinkedIn. I also want to mention that you can often contact a company independently to find out, is there really an opening? Because sometimes the website is legit, but the posting isn't. And my final suggestion is, we're talking about jobs, which we often understand to be sort of ongoing long positions, but we've also seen scams for one-time opportunities, contract work, gigs, consulting work. So be aware of that.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Dennis, let me stop and say, are there any questions that there have been in the chat yet?
Not yet, but one
Okay.
thing you did mention about spelling of the email address, even within the article, it's the posting itself. If the posting is written with bogus or crazy vocabulary, that might be a hint.
Yep, definitely.
Usually that's a key thing. When you see misspellings, because professionals do not allow that to occur normally. It's a 99.9% thing. They get checked. So let me go on to the next question. If you're contacted by an organization about a position, what should you keep in mind as you review communications from a potential employer?
Okay, great question, Jackie. First of all, keep track of all the jobs you applied for. Some candidates have fallen victim to scams after being contacted for jobs that they didn't even apply for. And let me just give one more little tip. What a lot of people do when they're keeping track of the jobs is they just keep a copy of the hot link. What happens though is that at some point the hot link goes cold because the job comes down. And they don't actually have any information about what they applied for. So take a screenshot. Don't just keep the hot link.
Good advice. Good advice.
If there wasn't an email address in the posting when you applied, which is often the case, because often you're applying on you're applying through a website, you're applying online, but now you're being contacted by somebody. If this is the time to, again, look carefully at the email address. And then any of the communication, as Dennis mentioned earlier, typos, errors, misspelling, poor grammar, awkward language. Most important, does something seem off? I've got to tell you that most of the people that I call for the Fraud Watch helpline are pretty smart together people. They are not people who are gullible. And often they'll say, as we're reflecting on the situation that they found themselves in, I had a funny feeling. I just didn't listen to it. So if something seems off, listen to it. And I think you should run it past a trusted friend. It just means it doesn't mean you don't know what to do. It just, let me get a second opinion, because often you will have a sense of it. You were rushing or you didn't take time. So that piece of it, just listen to your gut also.
Oh, I believe in that. If your gut feels something like not right, ask someone, check it out. Very, very good advice, Alice. I like that. So, do you have any advice about the interview process?
Okay, well, first of all, is there an interview process?
Right.
Right. Really, really important. So that means you didn't get asked to download some software or do some kind of a chat. So were you interviewed? I know it sounds kind of silly to say, but I'm going to tell you, people have been scammed when there wasn't an interview. Do you get a job offer very, very quickly? I can tell you from many decades of career coaching that the more frequent problem with real jobs is that the process takes too long. It does not usually go so quickly. So if it's going really quickly, then there's time urgency. Be really cautious. And finally, be especially cautious if all the interviews are online. It's very easy to fake a background, to put up a logo. And so you want to actually see a person during the interview. The other thing is, were you asked specific questions about your field, or were they all generic questions? Was it sort of, strengths, weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, an offer came. So again, if it's going really, really quickly and generally, just be cautious.
That is really good advice because people don't normally think of that. Thank you for that, Alice. So how can you protect your personal information during a job search?
Well, personal information is one of the reasons why scammers love to do fraudulent job postings, because, job searches are a great opportunity to steal personal information. So a couple things. One is the prospective employer asking for personal information during the interview process? Did they request your social security number? Did they ask you to fill out a W-4 form before you even have an offer?
Good.
Another thing, did the employer come up with a reason to send you a check before you start working? I mean, first we work, then we get paid. That's kind of how it works. So if a check is coming before you work, now I have to tell you, some of the scammers are really sophisticated in how they do this, but be very, very cautious. Did they send you a check or show you a photo of a check that they will be sending you? Sometimes there's the fake check scam where they send you a check. It appears to have cleared after a day or two, but it can actually take up to 2 weeks for the check to fully clear. And by that time, you've sent them some money back. Did the employer ask you to pay for anything before starting work? So people have been asked to pay for time tracking software, supplies. Do not pay for anything. And especially do not use Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, any peer-to-peer payment apps, or purchase gift cards or provide a credit card to employer. Any of those things. And let me just say, in general, when you hear gift card, think scam. A couple more things. One is, with a legitimate offer, you will be asked to fill out a W-4 form. In order to get paid, we have to give our social security number, so for tax records. So this means before you fill out the W-4, it is extremely important that you are positive it is a legitimate offer. And finally, did they offer you a job and quickly request your bank information for direct deposit of your check? So here's my suggestion. When you're starting a new job, take a paper check or two before setting up direct deposit anywhere. Old-fashioned paper checks still work, and you can get the first check, be sure everything's in order, and then you do direct deposit.
That is good. That is very, very good. So, can you share some other examples of job search scams that you encountered as a career director?
Sure. I could go on and on, but I'll limit myself to just 2.
Okay.
So one was a candidate applied for a graphic designer position, and everything looked legitimate in the offer. And the only reason that she reached out to me is that I had spoken in one of her classes. And whenever I spoke in any class on any topic, I started with my job search scam publicity. And she said she remembered me saying, if you get a job offer, please run it past me. So she did. So we looked the people up on LinkedIn. They were all there. I asked her about the interview process, and she told me who she interviewed with. It all sounded fine. This was early on in my job search scam campaign, and I didn't look as closely as I should have at the email address. And then I said, how did your portfolio review go? And she said, there was not a portfolio review. And I said, did they look at any of your work? She said, they did not look at any of my work. And because I work at a college that gives a BFA in graphic design, I am aware of the fact that you literally cannot get hired in that field without someone looking at your work. And then we looked at the interviewer's email address. It was missing one letter. And it turned out that the scammer had impersonated a real company and real staff. So I did reach out to the staff at the company to let them know they were what had happened.
Right.
And this, I mean, really, this was a pretty well done scam. So just remember, if there's something that is essential to your field in order to be either be asked or shown, and it doesn't happen, that's a sign. And then, Jackie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that you just mentioned was that then you reached out to the company to let them know. I think that's another very important step. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yes, in my career center role, I always did that. And sometimes with small companies, it would mean going to the president of the company to let them know about it. So. And another one, I'll do this one quickly. Somebody applied for an office personal assistant position. By the way, personal assistant became used so often in scams that we made a policy in our office that no one could approve a personal assistant job unless myself or my second in command saw it, because it was just at the point where we pretty much assumed it was a scam. She was applying for an office assistant job with an architecture firm that was relocating from Buenos Aires to Cambridge, and they used all these local references. She showed me the correspondence. It was perfectly written, no misspellings, and it went on for weeks and weeks. And then they sent her a check for a big amount of money that was going to be used for the office supplies she was supposed to purchase and her first paycheck. And they're sorry, they made a mistake. They sent her too much money. Could she just send back $1,200? And we know what happened with that. So at the end, she not only didn't have a job, she didn't have the funds to cover what she sent, and this whole hassle to deal with. So yeah.
That's horrendous.
I'll stop there though, because I could go on and on.
I think that's horrendous. That's a lot of good information, seriously, that some people don't even think of. So I think that we're going to show some resources. Is that true?
Well, let me jump into one question that we received, and I think
Sure.
you may have answered it with the last couple of pieces of information you gave, Alice. This is, what exactly is the scam with this site? And I think she's referring to, it says, do they ask for a deposit, then disappear? And what are the risks? So I think some of it had to do with what you had mentioned about sending money up front or sending a check, or this whole thing about this go directly to direct deposit first.
If anybody asked you to send money and send money, anything connected to job searching, be very, very, the circumstances under which that should happen, I can't imagine what they would be. And then the direct deposit is just not giving your banking information until you've already been working for the place for a little bit.
Anything else, Dennis?
Nope, that's it so far. And let me do a share screen, and we'll look at a few of the resources in a couple of let me go over here. Let me do slideshow and from the beginning.
So that goes to my question to you, Alice. So what can someone do if they or a loved one has been victimized by an employment scam?
So definitely call the AARP Fraud Watch helpline. The number is up on the screen. It's 877-908-3360. It's an incredible resource. And people the helpline volunteers can help you figure out whether or not it's a scam and give you resources of many things to do next. And you can see, obviously, if you provided any banking information for some reason, contact your bank. Resource for the FTC is up on the screen. If you provided personal information, one of the things you want to do is either put a credit alert or freeze on your account with all of the 3 credit bureaus, and the contact information is there. If you call one TransUnion, they will contact the other 2 to put a credit alert. You can also report it to the FBI Internet Crime Center at www.ic3.gov/complaint. I recommend that you check your financial statements and bank records carefully. And honestly, this is good advice whether or not you've been scammed, because often the way you find out you're scammed is that you see charges that you don't recognize. You can also file an emergency police report. If you sent money with Zelle or Venmo or any of the peer-to-peer payment apps, you can report it to them, though it's pretty unlikely you'll get any money back. If you did purchase a gift card, don't give the number to the scammer. And after this, no one's going to purchase a gift card for anything other than an actual gift. And then I recommend finally that you limit the personal information you share on social media. You can set your privacy settings on LinkedIn so that only people who can get your contact information are those you've accepted as connections. And I recommend that you accept requests only from people you know.
That is great. So those are your final thoughts, or there are some other key points that you want to share?
Yeah, let me just say, and my final thoughts, when scammers have been asked how they got people to fall for their scams, they say they got victims under the ether. So what is the ether? It's a heightened emotional state. Scammers are aware that our emotions run high when we're job seeking, and they take advantage of it. Now, remember, you know, if when you're job seeking, you could be discouraged, sometimes feel desperate or stressed. Also, when you get an email saying you were picked for an interview, you can get really excited. So scammers, I mean, when you think about it, scammers are job search is kind of the perfect storm. You know, we're personal information and we're excited or we're discouraged. So, and also the other thing is, it isn't like you have to be in a heightened emotional state for a week, even an hour. It can be that momentary lapse where you just sort of let your guard down for a minute. So just be aware of the ether. And the final thing I want to say is the majority of job postings are legitimate. So now that you know the signs of scams, you'll be considering the possibility of fake postings, but then you're empowered to be knowledgeable and you'll be able to avoid them. So I wish you best wishes with your search.
And we had one more question that came in. It says, will you be sending this information as a handout? Yes, we're going to send you a copy of the recording, and we're going to send you a PDF file that has those 3 slides with Alice's 10 points and the third slide that has the resources on it. And all of those, that last one with the resources, there'll be links. So all you gotta do is when you get that slide, just click on the links and you'll be able to go right to those sites.
That is so great. That I want to thank you, Alice, for all of this so good information that I'm sure a lot of people had no idea about, and we'll be looking out for it now. So, and thank you for all your insight, sharing it, and all the resources. And like Dennis said, everyone will be getting copies of the slides, the recordings, and the links to everything that you have given us.
Thank you, Jackie.
Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Dennis, for everything that you've done as well. Thank you, ARP Fraud Talk Tuesdays. It's Jackie Cairo Williams who interviewed Alice Diamond. Thank you again.